Welcome to the Real Free News audio podcast. Today, we explore paths to global influence. This analysis examines tribal cohesion, long-term historical endurance, flexible strategies, and religious unity. Using interdisciplinary insights, it highlights the Jews as a unique example of these elements, offering a framework for understanding sustained collective power and real-world dominance. The pursuit of sustained global hegemony by a singular entity constitutes a profound subject of inquiry within political science, sociology, anthropology, and religious studies. This concept extends far beyond conventional territorial expansion or military subjugation, encompassing the orchestration of comprehensive influence across economic systems, cultural paradigms, institutional frameworks, and informational networks. Historical exemplars, such as the Roman Empire's intricate administrative apparatus and the Byzantine Empire's sophisticated diplomatic maneuvers, exemplify endeavors toward enduring dominance, illustrating the multifaceted strategies required to navigate internal complexities, external oppositions, and inherent systemic volatilities. Theoretical constructs like social dominance theory, SDT, delineate the mechanisms through which hierarchical structures arise from collective identities, including ethnicity, class, or ideological affiliations, while elite theory elucidates the processes by which circumscribed cohorts consolidate and perpetuate disproportionate authority via strategic institutional entrenchment. This essay articulates the foundational elements requisite for hypothetical global hegemony, a resilient tribal architecture for organizational integrity, protracted historical continuity for the accretion of strategic acumen, adaptive intergenerational methodologies for the projection of influence, and the incorporation of religious dimensions for ideological solidification. These constituents demarcate groups inclined toward mere persistence, exemplified by sequestered indigenous societies, from those oriented toward hegemonic ascendancy. The analysis advances the thesis that, among extant historical entities, the Jewish people embody the paradigmatic alignment with these parameters, amalgamating tribal cohesion, millennial endurance, strategic malleability, and religious profundity in a configuration unparalleled by other collectives. Through an interdisciplinary lens encompassing historical, socio-political, economic, and religious perspectives, this examination posits that if a group were to endeavor toward or achieve global hegemony, the Jewish model furnishes the most cogent blueprint, with analytical indicators converging upon this archetype as the preeminent candidate for such an enterprise. Structural parameters for sustained hegemony. The attainment of hypothetical global hegemony demands an organizational substratum that eclipses the frailties of individualistic or familial constructs, privileging a tribal paradigm for augmented scalability, resilience, and operational efficacy. In anthropological discourse, a tribe denotes a socio-collective entity comprising interwoven kinship clusters, coalesced by mutual lineage, cultural mores, linguistic commonalities, and normative governance, frequently operating as a decentralized apparatus for security, resource dissemination, and conflict resolution. This configuration mitigates the vulnerabilities endemic to solitary familial units, such as intergenerational discord, demographic attenuation, or leadership discontinuities, by harnessing a multiplicity of lineages to engender emergent hierarchies, distribute strategic imperatives, and foster collective resilience. Such a structure is optimally suited for protracted, multi-generational initiatives, wherein responsibilities are apportioned across an expansive network of affiliated kin, thereby attenuating hazards linked to individual defections or exigencies. For entities aspiring to dominance, tribal cohesion necessitates the integration of mechanisms like endogamy to perpetuate genetic and cultural homogeneity, ceremonial practices to fortify communal allegiance, and stratified compartmentalization to ensure informational security and strategic discretion. Empirical precedents from history, including the expansive tribal coalitions of the Mongol Khanates under Genghis Khan, underscore how such architectures facilitate coordinated proliferation and resource mobilization on a grand scale. Diverging from survival-centric tribes, typified by egalitarian hunter-gatherer assemblages that emphasize evasion and equilibrium, dominance-oriented tribes incorporate hierarchical imperatives and extrinsic instrumentalism, conceptualizing exogenous actors as conduits for alliances, proxies, or leverage. This synthesis engenders a robust platform for hegemonic pursuits, wherein internal fidelity is amplified by shared ethnic or ideological affinities, enabling the systematic exploitation of external opportunities. Religion augments this tribal edifice by furnishing a transcendent ideological scaffold, imbuing collective endeavors with divine sanction and aligning individual agency with overarching objectives. Through doctrinal narratives, liturgical observances, and ethical precepts, religion cultivates an indissoluble loyalty that transcends temporal vicissitudes, rendering the tribe impervious to fragmentation. In dominance frameworks, religious tenets can be calibrated to rationalize expansionist strategies, framing influence acquisition as a sacral obligation and providing adaptive hermeneutics to navigate evolving geopolitical landscapes. Protracted historical continuity, extending across centuries or millennia, emerges as an indispensable prerequisite for the accumulation of adaptive erudition through iterative experiential refinement. This temporal expanse engenders institutional memory, encapsulating insights gleaned from ecological transformations, belligerent engagements, socio-economic upheavals, and technological paradigm shifts, preserved via oral legacies, scriptural codices, or perennial institutions. Collectives manifesting this attribute, such as the San peoples with genetic pedigrees exceeding 100,000 years or Aboriginal Australians surpassing 50,000 years, evince primordial tenacity through cultural profundity and geographic sequestration. Nevertheless, hegemonic aspirations mandate proactive acclimatization, tactical withdrawals amid adversarial epochs, resurgence during propitious intervals, and the fortification of assets through diversified patrimony, fiduciary constructs, or philanthropic entities. This continuity facilitates the distillation of strategic doctrines, enabling the tribe to anticipate and capitalize upon emergent contingencies with prescience derived from historical precedents. Religion contributes integrally to this longevity by functioning as an immutable repository of mythic archetypes and moral axioms, permitting doctrinal evolution while safeguarding existential continuity. Sacred texts and traditions serve as conduits for intergenerational transmission, embedding adaptive protocols within a framework of divine continuity that imbues persistence with teleological significance. Intergenerational strategies constitute the operational nexus, privileging pliable schemata over inflexible mandates to orchestrate pervasive influence. These encompass the surreptitious permeation of pivotal institutions, encompassing sovereign administrations, multilateral consortia, financial conglomerates, and communicative conduits, to modulate policy trajectories and resource allocations. Economic preeminence is achieved through the monopolization of fiscal instruments, indebtedness paradigms, and investment conduits, engendering dependencies that reward compliance and sanction recalcitrance. Cultural hegemony is effected via the dissemination of normative discourses through pedagogical systems, entertainment modalities, and digital platforms, normalizing the tribe's ideological precepts as universal verities. The orchestration or exploitation of crises, ranging from epidemiological outbreaks to geopolitical conflagrations, serves to legitimize augmented surveillance, centralized adjudication, and regulatory expansions. Diverse proficiencies across domains such as finance, technology, jurisprudence, and intelligence ensure sustained competitive advantages, while demographic augmentation through elevated natality rates, endogamous unions, and selective acculturation bolsters human capital reservoirs. Technological vanguardism, propelled by pedagogical imperatives and investigative espionage, fortifies prospective hegemony, adapting to disruptions like climatic anomalies or cybernetic evolutions. Security protocols, including compartmentalized cognition and redundant contingencies, safeguard against disclosures or adversities. Religious facets interlace with these strategies by proffering a divine imprimatur for self-aggrandizement and opportunism, construing hegemonic pursuits as fulfillments of covenantal mandates, and affording hermeneutic versatility to reconcile doctrinal fidelity with pragmatic exigencies. From socio-political vantage points, these parameters enable the subversion of democratic apparatuses through proxy affiliations and narrative engineering, while economic analyses reveal how fiscal dominance engenders global interdependencies conducive to indirect governance. Historical precedents affirm that such multifaceted approaches, refined over epochs, position the tribe as an adept navigator of complexity, poised for hegemonic realization. The Jewish people, the archetypal fit for hegemonic parameters. The historical odyssey of the Jewish people epitomizes the confluence of these parameters, amalgamating tribal cohesion, millennial continuity, adaptive stratagems, and religious profundity in a synthesis unrivaled among historical collectives. Emanating from ancient Near Eastern provenances, their communal identity has endured for 3,000 to 4,000 years, configured as a tribal matrix of interlinked communities unified by consanguineous bonds, endogamous conventions, and reciprocal sustenance mechanisms, including synagogal assemblies and benevolent associations. This tribal armature confers redundancy, permitting organic leadership ascension and the orchestration of protracted initiatives across successive cohorts, thereby transcending the ephemerality of individualistic endeavors. Judaism, the quintessential religious binder, traces its genesis through diverse scholarly postulations. Divine intercession, as articulated in the Sinaitic covenant wherein the deity conveyed statutes to Moses, forging a monotheistic ethos, or socio-cultural amalgamation in the Canaanite milieu circa 3,500 years antecedent, with consolidation amid the Persian dominion in Yehud. Irrespective of ontological provenance, whether celestial mandate or historical coalescence, this faith integrates monotheism, deontological imperatives, and ritualistic observances that coalesce the tribe, facilitating the intergenerational conveyance of erudition and telos. Its polymorphic essence, encompassing juridical, halakhic, speculative, and esoteric, Kabbalistic strata, affords adaptability. Orthodox modalities conserve foundational axioms, whereas reform and conservative variants recalibrate for contemporaneous exigencies, ensuring doctrinal pertinence amid flux. This religio-tribal symbiosis amplifies longevity, as evidenced by acclamations through Babylonian and Roman diasporas, evolving from sacerdotal rites to rabbinical erudition and diasporic lattices. These lattices enable planetary dissemination while conserving doctrinal nuclei, distinguishing them from assimilated antecedents like the Phoenicians. In contemporary arenas, this yields amplified impacts in scientific inquiry, fiscal architectures, and cultural productions, deriving from intellectual mandates and transportable vocations. For hegemonic aspirations, such malleability dovetails with strategic imperatives. Fiscal supremacy via banking innovations and speculative ventures, socio-political permeation through scholastic eminence and coalitional diplomacy, and cultural ascendancy through value propagation. The monotheistic conviction instills an elected vocation, impelling communal safeguarding and progression as theistic imperatives, while the faith's pliancy underwrites opportunistic realignments. Comparatively, aggregates like the Han Chinese, exceeding 4,000 years, accentuate status perpetuity, or the Basques, surpassing 5,000 years, emphasize parochial seclusion, yet deficient in the Jewish fusion of cosmopolitan dispersion, religious profundity, and intellectual acuity. Sociopolitical scrutinies underscore Jewish preponderance in influential spheres, arising from historical exigencies, as consonant with dominance modalities, facilitating structural orchestration for enduring dividends. Economic dissections denote mastery over pivotal fluxes, while religious solidarity furnishes the ideological kernel for synchronized exertions. Thus, if a collective were endeavoring toward global hegemony, the Jewish paradigm, honed through epochs of empirical refinement, acclimatization, and self-advancement, emerges as the exclusive congruence, with interdisciplinary metrics inexorably orienting toward this archetype in evaluations of planetary power architectures. Conclusion: synthesis and implications of the Jewish archetype in global hegemony. The hypothetical construct of global hegemony is predicated upon a multifaceted foundation comprising a tribal substratum that ensures cohesive fortitude, millennial historical continuity that imparts strategic sagacity, adaptive intergenerational methodologies designed for the systematic dissemination of influence, and the religious amalgamation that provides ideological tenacity. Collectively, these elements forge a sophisticated schema for dominance, characterized by nuanced and perennial sway over international affairs. Through the prisms of historical analysis, socio-political examination, economic evaluation, and religious interpretation, it becomes evident how these interwoven constituents empower a collective entity to navigate and surmount the labyrinthine intricacies of global dynamics. This empowerment manifests as a virtuosic capacity for adaptation and the exploitation of exigencies, allowing the group to anticipate shifts in power structures, capitalize on emergent opportunities, and mitigate potential threats with unparalleled precision. In essence, the integration of these parameters creates a resilient apparatus capable of sustaining influence across epochs, transcending mere survival to embody proactive mastery. Such a framework underscores the necessity of holistic synergy, where each component reinforces the others, transforming isolated strengths into a unified force for hegemonic potential. This theoretical edifice not only delineates the pathways to power, but also highlights the evolutionary processes through which groups refine their approaches, drawing from centuries of accumulated wisdom to position themselves at the apex of global hierarchies. The Jewish people stand as the archetypal embodiment of these hegemonic parameters, synthesizing tribal interconnectedness, religious profundity, and adaptive ingenuity in a manner that elevates them to the apotheosis of collective resilience and strategic acumen. Their historical trajectory, spanning millennia, illustrates a tribal structure fortified by endogamous practices and communal networks that foster unbreakable loyalty and resource sharing, while their religious framework, rooted in monotheistic convictions and multifaceted interpretations, serves as a binding force that aligns individual actions with communal objectives. This synthesis enables the navigation of vicissitudes, from ancient exiles to modern diasporas, refining strategies that balance self-preservation with expansive outreach. Economic prowess, derived from historical emphases on portable skills and intellectual pursuits, aligns seamlessly with the parameters of fiscal dominance, allowing for the creation of dependencies through innovative financial mechanisms. Sociopolitically, their adaptive methodologies facilitate institutional infiltration and alliance building, positioning them to influence policy and cultural narratives on a global scale. Religiously, the interplay of faith and tribal ethos infuses pursuits with a sense of divine purpose, providing moral justification for opportunistic advancements and doctrinal flexibility to suit evolving contexts. Thus, the Jewish model exemplifies how a group might theoretically orchestrate hegemony, leveraging their unique amalgamation of elements to transcend adversity and assert subtle, enduring control. This interdisciplinary thesis advances the proposition that, in any deliberation concerning a group pursuing or attaining world rule, analytical paradigms inexorably converge upon the Jews, as their comprehensive historical trajectory and structural attributes furnish the quintessential pathway to such an ambitious endeavor. By interweaving faith with tribal ethos, they manifest a resilient framework adept at traversing millennia of challenges, meticulously refining strategies that harmonize intrinsic self-preservation with extrinsic expansive influence. This convergence is not arbitrary but stems from the empirical alignment of their attributes with the delineated parameters, tribal cohesion offering scalability beyond familial limits, historical continuity accruing adaptive knowledge through iterative refinement, intergenerational strategies enabling covert institutional embedding, and religious integration providing ideological unity amid diversity. In sociopolitical terms, this positions them as masters of subtle power dynamics, where economic leverage and cultural hegemony are wielded with foresight honed over generations. The thesis thus illuminates the theoretical mechanics of hegemony, suggesting that the Jewish paradigm represents the singular congruence capable of sustaining such pursuits, where other groups, despite impressive longevity or adaptability, lack the holistic integration that defines this archetype. In broader social scientific discourse, this inquiry elucidates the profound interplay of collective identities, spiritual convictions, and strategic foresight within the architecture of power, underscoring how such synergies could theoretically culminate in hegemonic preeminence. The dynamics revealed herein offer profound insights into the mechanisms of enduring collective agency in human civilization, demonstrating how groups that master these parameters not only endure but potentially dominate global narratives. Ultimately, the Jewish model not only fits but defines the parameters for global dominance, serving as a lens through which to understand the evolution of power structures. This analysis invites further scholarly exploration into the intersections of ethnicity, religion, and strategy, positing that the pathways to hegemony are forged through the meticulous cultivation of these elements over time. In contemplating the future of global affairs, such a model provides a compelling framework for assessing emergent powers, reminding us that true influence arises from the harmonious orchestration of historical depth, adaptive ingenuity, and ideological resolve. Thank you for listening to the Real Free News Podcast. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and tell us what you think in the comments section. Visit realfreenews.com for more real free news and check out the Real Free News store for real free food and gear. Tune in again, and until then, remember to keep it real. Free news. See you next time.